At 3:47 p.m. on February 21st, 1994, FBI Special Agent Les Weiser watched Aldrich Ames pull into his driveway at 2512 North Randolph Street in Arlington, Virginia. 52 years old, 31-year CIA veteran, chief of Soviet counterintelligence for the Europe Division. Ames had driven a Jaguar XJ6 worth $50,000 to work that morning on a $60,000 salary. In 47 seconds, FBI agents would surround his car and arrest him for espionage. His colleagues thought he'd inherited money. The FBI knew better. He'd sold the names of every CIA agent in Moscow to the KGB. At least 10 men had been executed because of him. The arrest would happen at 3:48 p.m. Ames was checking his rearview mirror. He had no idea this was the end. 47 seconds. The CIA had been bleeding secrets for 9 years. Operations blown within weeks of launch. Sources arrested within days of recruitment. Agents executed in Soviet prisons before American handlers could extract them. In 1985, the CIA had more than 20 active Soviet sources providing intelligence on military plans, nuclear programs, and KGB operations. By 1986, 12 had been arrested. By 1987, 10 had been executed. The math was brutal. Someone was talking. The pattern that kills repeated itself with mechanical precision throughout 1985 and 1986. Dmitry Polyakov, CIA codename Top Hat, arrested March 1986. General in Soviet military intelligence, had provided intelligence to the CIA for over 2 decades, information on Soviet missiles, nuclear war strategy, and spy operations. Executed 1988 by firing squad. Valery Martinov, FBI asset, KGB Line X officer based in Washington, and arrested June 1985. Recalled to Moscow under false pretenses. Interrogated for months. Executed May 28, 1987, single gunshot to the head. Sergei Motorin, FBI asset, KGB major, double agent since 1980, arrested simultaneously with Martinov, executed 1987. His wife learned the truth 9 days after his execution. Leonid Poleshchuk, CIA asset, KGB counterintelligence officer stationed in Lagos, Nigeria, betrayed 1985, arrested 1985, executed July 1986. The body count climbed. Each execution followed the same pattern. Sudden recall to Moscow, arrest at the airport, mock trial lasting days, sentence delivered without appeal, execution by firing squad or single gunshot, families notified weeks later, if at all. The CIA watched its Moscow networks collapse in real time. 0 Soviet sources survived more than 3 months after being handled from Moscow Station. Aldrich Ames had the perfect cover for a traitor. He was the CIA officer responsible for investigating Soviet spies. His job title, Chief of Soviet Counterintelligence Branch, Europe Division. His responsibilities included managing operations against KGB officers, debriefing defectors, and analyzing Soviet espionage patterns. He had top-secret, sensitive compartmented information clearance. He had access to every agent name, every operation, every safe house address in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union. His colleagues trusted him completely. He'd been with the agency since '62, 31 years of service. His father, Carlton Ames, had been a CIA analyst. The spy world was in his blood. Nobody suspected that blood had turned cold. His lifestyle should have given him away immediately. In 1989, he paid $540,000 cash for a house in Arlington. $540,000 in cash on a $60,000 salary. He drove a $50,000 Jaguar XJ6. He wore expensive suits from Neiman Marcus. He collected vintage wines worth thousands per bottle. He took luxury vacations to Europe and South America. He spent over $50,000 on home renovations. His credit card bills ran $10,000 to $20,000 per month. And nobody asked where the money came from. Colleagues who noticed explained it away. Inheritance, they said. His wife's family money, they assumed. CIA security officers saw the Jaguar in the parking lot and said nothing. The house purchase in cash raised no red flags. The credit card bills triggered no investigation. For 4 years, Aldrich Ames lived like a millionaire in plain sight of the people trained to catch spies. If you want to see how the FBI finally caught Ames after 9 years of betrayal and at least 10 executions, hit that like button right now. It tells YouTube to show this story to more people who need to hear it. And trust me, what happens next is worth staying for. April 16th, 1985, 4:30 p.m., Soviet Embassy, 1125 16th Street, Niplau, Washington, D.C. Aldrich Ames walked through the front door carrying a paper bag, 43 years old, 23 years with the CIA. Going through an expensive divorce from his first wife, Nancy. The divorce had cleaned him out financially. Alimony payments, debt settlements, legal fees running into tens of thousands. He was broke, but he knew something worth more than money: names. The CIA had dozens of Soviet sources, each one worth hundreds of thousands to the KGB. He knew where they lived, their real identities, their handlers, their methods, and the Soviet embassy was 2 miles from CIA headquarters. Ames had rehearsed this moment for weeks. He'd had a few drinks that afternoon to build courage. The paper bag contained 2 items. First, a note on CIA stationery introducing himself and offering his services. Second, the names of 3 KGB officers who were secretly working for the CIA. 3 names to prove he was legitimate. 3 lives to prove his access. The note demanded $50,000 in cash for the information. $50,000, the exact amount he needed to clear his divorce debts. The KGB officer who met him knew instantly what this meant. A CIA counterintelligence officer walking in voluntarily, offering names. This was the KGB's dream scenario. The officer took the bag, verified Ames's credentials by checking the names against KGB records. All 3 names matched known double agents. All 3 were genuine CIA recruits. The KGB had suspected them, but hadn't been certain until that moment. Within hours, Ames received his answer: $50,000 in cash, delivered to a dead drop location he'd specified, and a request for more, much more. Ames collected the $50,000 on April 18th, 1985. He opened the dead drop container. $50,000 in $100 bills. He counted it twice. Then he went home and paid off his divorce lawyers. The $50,000 bought him 3 months of financial breathing room. But it also bought him something else: a taste of how easy this was, how much the KGB valued CIA secrets, and how badly he needed more money. Because Ames had a new problem. Her name was Maria del Rosario Casas Dupuy, Colombian, cultural attaché at the Colombian embassy in Mexico City. Ames had met her in 1982 while stationed in Mexico. Beautiful, sophisticated, expensive tastes. She liked fine dining, designer clothes, luxury travel. Ames had fallen hard. He'd filed for divorce from Nancy in 1983 to be with Rosario. They'd married in August 1985, 4 months after his first betrayal. Rosario came with expensive habits, and Ames came with a $60,000 CIA salary. The math didn't work. June 13th, 1985, Ames walked into the Soviet embassy again. This time he brought a longer list. Not 3 names, 10. CIA and FBI sources inside the Soviet Union. Real names, code names, assignment locations, handlers, communication methods. Everything the KGB needed to roll up the entire American intelligence network in Moscow. He demanded more money. The KGB paid $100,000 in cash, $50,000 immediately. $50,000 delivered within 2 weeks. And a promise. More payments for more names, regular meetings every few months. Ames had sold his first 3 sources for $50,000. He'd just sold 10 more for 100,000. The price per life was dropping. But Ames didn't care about the math. He cared about the money. The first agent died within weeks. Dmitry Polyakov, codenamed Top Hat, was recalled to Moscow in March 1986, arrested immediately. The KGB had been suspicious of him for years, but couldn't prove his betrayal. Ames's list provided the proof. Polyakov was interrogated for months. He admitted nothing. The KGB didn't need his confession. They had Ames's intelligence documenting decades of espionage. Polyakov was executed by firing squad in 1988. He was 62 years old. He'd provided intelligence that saved countless American lives during the Cold War. CIA officers who'd handled him called him the most important spy the West ever had. Ames received $20,000 for betraying him. Valery Martinov died next, arrested June 1985. The KGB lured him back to Moscow with a fake promotion offer. He suspected a trap but had no choice. Refusal would confirm guilt. He boarded the flight hoping the KGB's suspicions were wrong. They weren't. KGB officers arrested him at Moscow's Sheremetyevo airport. His wife was allowed one prison visit. She brought their young son. Martinov knew he'd been sentenced to death. He asked his wife to tell their son he loved him. He was executed May 28, 1987, single gunshot to the back of the head. His widow received notification 9 days later. A brief letter stating her husband had been convicted of treason and executed. No explanation. No remains returned. No grave marker allowed. Sergei Motorin was arrested the same day as Martinov, June 1985. Same fake promotion lure. Same airport arrest. Motorin had been passing FBI information on KGB operations in Washington for 5 years. He'd provided details on Soviet intelligence collection methods, agent identities, and KGB operational plans. The FBI considered him invaluable. Ames sold him for a payment of $20,000. Motorin was executed 1987. His family learned about his arrest through whispered rumors. Official notification came months after his death. The KGB made examples of double agents. Public acknowledgement of their execution served as warnings to others considering betrayal. The betrayals continued throughout 1985 and 1986. Each meeting between Ames and his KGB handler produced more names. Each name produced more money. Each arrest led to another execution. Leonid Poleshchuk, Vladimir Paguzov, Vladimir Podashov, Gennady Smetanin, Gennady Varenik. 10 confirmed executions. Maybe more. The CIA would never know the complete count. Some agents simply disappeared. Others were quietly tried and imprisoned. The KGB didn't publicize every arrest. Silence served their purposes better than announcements. And Ames kept spending. The Jaguar appeared in 1989, $50,000. License plate ending in SP, an inside joke Ames found hilarious. The $540,000 house came the same year. 2512 North Randolph Street, Arlington. Split-level home in an upscale neighborhood. He paid cash. The real estate agent was surprised but didn't report it. Cash sales weren't illegal. Suspicious, maybe, but not illegal. Ames told colleagues his wife's family had money. Colombian family wealth, he explained. Nobody checked. Colombian records were hard to verify. And Rosario dressed and acted like wealthy Colombian aristocracy. The lie held. October 1985. Rome, Italy. The CIA had transferred Ames to Rome Station. He'd continue his betrayal from Italy. His handler changed from Washington-based KGB officers to Rome Residentura personnel. The meetings continued. The money kept flowing. 20,000 here, 50,000 there. By 1989, the KGB had paid Ames $1.88 million. They'd promised another $900,000, set aside in accounts he could access later. Total promised, $2.7 million. The KGB had never paid an American spy this much. Ames had never been richer. His double life played out in parallel worlds. At work, he investigated the Moscow disasters. At home, he counted the money he'd made causing them. In CIA meetings about the blown operations, Ames contributed theories about the mole. Maybe a communications breach, he'd suggest. Perhaps a technical penetration. Could be multiple sources of compromise. His colleagues nodded. Ames was counterintelligence. He understood these things. They trusted his analysis. None of them suspected the analyst was the answer. CIA officers noticed things but didn't connect them. In 1989, an officer reported Ames's house purchase to security. The report went into a file. No investigation followed. In 1990, a colleague mentioned Ames's expensive lifestyle at a meeting. Someone explained the inheritance story. The topic moved on. In 1991, Ames took a polygraph examination as part of routine security screening. He was terrified. The KGB had coached him. Just relax, they'd advised. The machine detects stress, not lies. If you're not stressed, you'll pass. Ames followed the advice. The polygraph showed some anomalies on certain answers. The examiner noted them, then passed him anyway. The anomalies weren't strong enough to fail him. Close call, but Ames walked out with his clearance intact. The CIA's counterintelligence officers couldn't understand what was happening. They'd lost nearly every Soviet source between 1985 and 1986. The losses were catastrophic, unprecedented. Something had gone terribly wrong. But what? They considered theories. Technical compromise. Had the Soviets broken CIA communications encryption? Possible, but unlikely. CIA encryption was sophisticated. Breaking it would require resources beyond even KGB capabilities. Human penetration. Did the KGB have a mole inside the CIA? Possible. But who? Hundreds of officers had access to Moscow operations. Narrowing suspects would take years. Multiple sources of compromise. Maybe several problems caused the disasters. Technical breach plus human betrayal plus bad operational security. The combination theory gained acceptance. It explained the scale of the losses without requiring a single catastrophic penetration. The theory was wrong, but it was comfortable, and it meant nobody had to accept that a trusted colleague might be killing American agents. The dead kept accumulating. 10 confirmed executed, more imprisoned, dozens of operations burned, technical capabilities exposed, safe houses abandoned, communication methods compromised. The damage ran into billions of dollars and decades of intelligence setbacks. Moscow Station operated under the assumption that everything was compromised. Recruitment of new sources stopped. Existing sources were warned to cease contact. The CIA's entire Soviet operation went dark. The KGB had won, and Aldrich Ames had made them winners. May 1991, the CIA finally assembled a small team to investigate the disasters. Not a full mole hunt, just a quiet review of what went wrong. The team included Sandy Grimes and Jean Vertefeuille, 2 CIA officers from the Soviet division. Their job: analyze the 1985-1986 losses and determine the cause. They started with the victims, 10 confirmed dead, all arrested within months of each other in 1985. All had been handled through Moscow Station operations. All had reported to CIA case officers who documented their intelligence in CIA files. All the files had been accessible to dozens of CIA officers with proper clearances. Grimes and Vertefeuille created a matrix. Operations compromised on one axis. CIA personnel with access on the other. They filled in the grid methodically. Which officers had access to which compromised operations? The matrix showed patterns. Some officers had access to 1 or 2 compromised operations. Coincidence or rotation explained their access. Other officers had access to 5 or 6. More suspicious, but still explainable. One officer had access to everything, every single compromised operation, every blown source, every executed agent. His name appeared in access logs for every disaster. Aldrich Ames. They'd found their suspect. But suspicion wasn't proof. Ames could explain his access. He was counterintelligence. His job required broad access to understand patterns and protect operations. Having access didn't prove betrayal. The team needed more. They started digging into Ames's life, quietly, without alerting him. Bank records showed interesting patterns. Large cash deposits, 20,000 here, 50,000 there. Deposits that coincided with unexplained absences from work. Deposits that didn't match his salary or any known legitimate income. The timing was damning. Each deposit came shortly after an operational disaster. Source arrested in Moscow. Ames deposited $30,000 2 weeks later. Operation blown in Prague. Ames deposited $45,000 the following month. The pattern was impossible to ignore. August 1992, Sandy Grimes found the smoking gun. Ames's bank records showed he'd made a large deposit on September 20th, 1985. $50,000. Cash. No source documentation. Grimes cross-referenced the date with operational records. September 18th, 1985. CIA officer met Soviet contact in Vienna. The meeting had been planned for weeks. Scheduled location, time, recognition signals all documented in files Ames had accessed. September 19th, 1985. The Soviet contact didn't appear. Later intelligence confirmed the contact had been arrested the day before the meeting. Someone had warned the KGB. Someone who knew the meeting details. Someone who'd deposited $50,000 in cash the day after the arrest. The circumstantial evidence was building into certainty. March 1993. The CIA briefed the FBI. We have a suspect, Aldrich Ames, CIA officer, 31 years service, access to everything, unexplained wealth, suspicious financial patterns. The FBI opened Operation Night Mover. FBI counterintelligence would investigate Ames. The CIA would provide support. The investigation would remain secret. Ames would continue working, unaware he was the target. If he was the mole, surveillance would catch him. If he wasn't, the investigation would clear him without damaging an innocent man's career. May 1993. FBI Special Agent Les Weiser took charge of the surveillance team. 38 years old, experienced FBI counterintelligence officer. Weiser assembled a team of specialists, surveillance experts, technical operations officers, financial investigators. Their mission: watch Ames 24 hours a day. Document everything. Find the proof. 10 months. That's how long the FBI gave themselves. If they couldn't prove Ames's guilt in 10 months, they'd close the investigation. The pressure was enormous. Les Weiser knew it. His team knew it. They had 10 months to catch the man who'd killed 10 American agents. The surveillance started small. Physical observation of Ames's house and workplace, tracking his movements, noting his routine. Ames drove the same route to work every day. North Randolph Street to Wilson Boulevard, to George Washington Memorial Parkway, to CIA headquarters. He stopped at the same Starbucks 3 mornings a week. He lunched at the same restaurants near Langley. Predictable. Routine. Boring. The FBI watched anyway. Boring surveillance broke most cases. Spies got comfortable. They made mistakes. Weiser was waiting for Ames's mistake. June 1993. The FBI got legal authorization to search Ames's house while he was at work. The search team went in quietly. They photographed everything. They copied computer files. They collected trash from the bins. They left no trace of their presence. What they found confirmed suspicions. Classified CIA documents. In Ames's house. On his home computer. Documents he had no authorized reason to bring home. Documents detailing active CIA operations in Russia, operational plans, agent names, safe house locations, communication schedules. The documents were marked top secret CI. Taking them home violated every CIA security protocol. Ames had taken them anyway. The FBI found something else. Communications from the KGB, letters written on typewriters, instructions for meetings, dead drop locations marked on maps, payment schedules. The KGB called Ames by a code name, Kolokol, Russian for the bell. The communications confirmed everything. Ames was selling secrets. The KGB was paying for them. The relationship had lasted 9 years. The evidence was overwhelming, but Weiser wanted more. He wanted to catch Ames in the act, a dead drop servicing, a meeting with a handler, something that would eliminate any possible defense, something that would guarantee conviction. September 1993. Ames gave them what they needed. September 15th, a Wednesday. Ames left work early, told colleagues he had a dentist appointment. The FBI followed. Ames didn't go to any dentist. He drove to a shopping plaza in Arlington, parked near a row of mailboxes, got out, checked his surroundings, walked to a specific mailbox. Blue USPS mailbox. Nothing special about it except the location. Ames pulled out a piece of chalk from his jacket. White chalk. He made a horizontal mark about 3 inches long above the USPS logo, then walked away. The whole thing took 15 seconds. The FBI photographed everything. Weiser knew immediately what he'd witnessed. The chalk mark was a signal. In spy tradecraft, signals like that meant one thing: I have information. Meet me at the designated location. The mark told Ames's KGB handler a meeting was coming. The FBI would later learn the mark meant Ames wanted to meet in Bogota, Colombia on November 1st. His handlers would confirm by making their own chalk mark on a different mailbox. The whole system was straight from KGB training manuals, and the FBI had photographed Ames making the mark. Incontrovertible evidence. But Weiser wanted more. He wanted to see the document handoff. He wanted to catch Ames passing classified material. That would seal the case. October 13th, 1993. Ames made another chalk mark. Same mailbox. Same location above the USPS logo. Same 3-inch horizontal line. The FBI photographed it again. This signal meant Ames was confirming the November Bogota meeting. The surveillance team tracked everything. They documented Ames's preparations for the Colombia trip, visa applications, flight reservations, cover story about visiting Rosario's family. The FBI coordinated with Colombian authorities. If Ames tried to meet his handler in Bogota, Colombian intelligence would observe and photograph the meeting. The trap was set. But something changed. The FBI decided they couldn't wait until November. Too much risk. If Ames suspected surveillance, he might run. If he fled to Russia, the case would collapse. The FBI would lose their chance at prosecution, and Ames would spend the rest of his life as a celebrated defector in Moscow. The decision came down from FBI headquarters. Arrest Ames in February 1994, before the Colombia trip, before he had another chance to pass information, before anything could go wrong. Les Weiser got the order in January. The arrest would happen February 21st, 1994, President's Day, a federal holiday. Ames would be leaving his house that morning under the pretense of coming into work for a special assignment. The FBI would take him at his home. Quiet, controlled, no chance for escape or resistance. Weiser's team had 2 months to finalize preparations. The FBI continued surveillance through January and February. Ames maintained his routine. House to Starbucks to CIA headquarters and back. Jaguar in the driveway every evening. No signs he suspected anything. The FBI's trash pull operation had been finding more evidence. Drafts of documents Ames planned to give the KGB, notes about operational details, financial records showing cash deposits, every piece of trash added to the prosecution case. Ames was being careful at work, but careless at home. The trash betrayed him. Literally. February 21st, 1994, 3:47 p.m. Aldrich Ames pulled his Jaguar XJ6 into the driveway at 2512 North Randolph Street. He'd just left CIA headquarters after a meeting about an upcoming trip. His supervisor had asked him to come in on the holiday for a briefing. Ames hadn't questioned it. He was senior enough that unusual meeting requests weren't suspicious. He parked, turned off the engine, started gathering his briefcase from the passenger seat, and FBI Special Agent Mike Rochford approached from the driver's side. FBI, you're under arrest. Ames looked up, confused. Then comprehension hit. His face went blank. No emotion, just acceptance. I've been expecting you, he said. Or that's what some FBI reports claimed he said. Other accounts said he stayed silent. Either way, the reaction was the same. No surprise, no resistance, just quiet acceptance that 9 years of betrayal had ended. FBI agents swarmed the scene. 6 vehicles, 12 agents. They'd planned for resistance. They'd prepared for a chase. They got neither. Ames didn't move, didn't argue, didn't ask for a lawyer. He let them handcuff him, rid him his rights, lead him to an FBI car, 47 seconds from approach to handcuffs, 31 years with the CIA, over in less than a minute. Simultaneously, other FBI agents arrested Rosario Ames at the couple's house. She was more surprised than her husband. She screamed. She demanded explanations. She called her husband's arrest a mistake. The FBI didn't argue. They just took her into custody. The Ames investigation had prepared for this moment for 10 months. The arrests were clean, professional, perfect. The FBI search of the Ames house lasted 2 days. What they found exceeded expectations. Classified documents, 144 pages marked top secret, operational plans, agent identities, communication schedules, technical specifications, documents. Ames had no authorization to remove from CIA headquarters. Documents he'd been planning to photograph and pass to the KGB. Spy equipment, a shortwave radio for receiving KGB communications, maps marked with dead drop locations, chalk sticks for making signal marks, hollowed-out containers for hiding documents, everything a professional spy needed, communications, letters from the KGB, payment schedules, instructions for meetings, references to Ames's codename Kolokol, documentation of 9 years of espionage, personal items that revealed his spending, 60 designer purses belonging to Rosario, more than 500 pairs of shoes, 165 unopened boxes of pantyhose, credit card statements showing monthly charges exceeding $10,000, wine collections worth tens of thousands. The Ames household lived like royalty on CIA clerical salaries. The FBI also searched Ames's CIA office. More classified documents, more operational details, a complete disregard for security protocols. Ames had been so confident, so comfortable in his betrayal, that he'd stopped being careful. The evidence was overwhelming. Every drawer, every file, every disk contained proof. 9 years of espionage documented in paper trails, computer files, and communications. Les Weiser had wanted overwhelming evidence. He'd gotten it. No jury would question this case. At FBI headquarters, Ames's interrogation began. The lead interrogator offered him a deal, full cooperation in exchange for consideration, not freedom. Ames would spend life in prison regardless, but cooperation could help his wife. Rosario faced espionage charges as an accomplice. The evidence showed she'd helped Ames. She'd signaled handlers. She'd spent the money. She'd known about the betrayal. If Ames cooperated, the FBI would recommend leniency for Rosario. If he didn't, they'd prosecute her to the full extent. Ames considered the offer. He loved Rosario. Whatever else he was, he loved his wife. And his son Paul, born in 1989, needed his mother. The choice was simple. Ames agreed to cooperate. Over the next 2 months, Ames told everything. The first approach in April 1985, the $50,000 payment, the names he'd given, the subsequent meetings, the payments totaling $4.6 million over 9 years, the KGB handler names, the dead drop locations, the communication methods, the operational details, every single betrayal documented in interrogation transcripts. Ames showed no remorse. He explained his motivations clinically. Money. He'd needed money. The divorce had bankrupted him. Rosario expected a certain lifestyle. CIA salaries didn't support that lifestyle. The KGB offered cash, simple transaction, supply and demand. He'd had the supply. The KGB demanded it. The moral questions didn't seem to trouble him, or if they did, he didn't show it. The FBI's damage assessment took months to complete. What had Aldrich Ames sold to the KGB? Everything. Literally everything. The assessment documented Human intelligence compromised. More than 30 CIA and FBI sources identified and passed to the KGB. At least 10 executed. Others imprisoned. Some disappeared without trace. Operational intelligence. Over 100 CIA operations against the Soviet Union compromised. Operations that had taken years to develop. Billions in resources invested. All burned. Technical intelligence. CIA listening posts in Moscow compromised. Communication methods exposed. Encryption techniques revealed. Surveillance detection capabilities mapped. Strategic intelligence. CIA organizational structure documented. Personnel assignments revealed. Recruitment procedures exposed. Future operational plans compromised. The financial accounting was simpler. Total payments to Ames, $4.6 million. $2.7 million received in cash. $1.9 million held in KGB accounts for future payment. Ames had spent most of the received money. $540,000 on the house. $50,000 on the Jaguar. Hundreds of thousands on credit cards, travel, wine, clothes, restaurants, luxury goods. Only $547,000 remained in accessible accounts when the FBI arrested him. That money was seized and given to a victims assistance fund, a drop in the bucket compared to the damage he'd caused. The human cost was documented agent by agent. Dmitry Polyakov, GRU General, codename Top Hat, arrested 1986, executed 1988, had provided intelligence on Soviet missiles, nuclear strategy, and espionage operations for over 20 years. CIA considered him the most valuable spy in modern history. Ames sold him for approximately $20,000. Valery Martinov, KGB officer, FBI codename Gentleman, arrested June 1985, executed May 28, 1987. Single gunshot to the head, left behind a wife and young son. The family learned of his arrest weeks after his execution. Sergei Motorin, KGB major, FBI asset since 1980, arrested June 1985, executed 1987, family notified months later, no remains returned, no grave marker. Leonid Polishchuk, KGB lieutenant colonel, CIA asset since 1980, stationed in Lagos, Nigeria, arrested 1985 upon return to Moscow, executed July 1986. His son later wrote about finding out his father had been a CIA spy. The revelation shattered the family's understanding of their history. Vladimir Pigazov, GRU officer, CIA asset, arrested 1985, fate unknown, assumed executed but never confirmed. Vladimir Podashov, Soviet diplomat, CIA asset, arrested 1986, executed 1987. Gennady Varenik, KGB officer, arrested 1986, imprisoned, released after Soviet collapse, died in poverty in Russia. Gennady Smetanin, GRU officer, arrested 1985, executed 1986. Boris Yuzin, KGB officer, FBI asset stationed in San Francisco, arrested 1986, sentenced to 15 years hard labor, survived, released after Soviet collapse, eventually immigrated to the United States, one of the few Ames victims who survived. Adolf Tolkachev, Soviet engineer, CIA codename GT Vanquish, provided intelligence on Soviet radar and weapon systems worth an estimated $2 billion in American research and development savings. Arrested 1985, executed 1986. His intelligence had been so valuable, the CIA called him the billion-dollar spy. The ripple effects extended beyond the dead. CIA operations in Moscow shut down completely for years. Station chiefs recalled, officers reassigned, active operations terminated, recruitment of new sources suspended. The assumption? Everything was compromised. Any new recruitment might be a KGB provocation. Any new source might be a dangle. Trust evaporated. The Moscow station went dark. It took decades to rebuild. Allied intelligence services questioned their cooperation with the CIA. Britain's MI6 demanded answers. How had a mole operated for 9 years? What counterintelligence failures allowed it? Could MI6 trust CIA vetting? The questions strained relationships. Other allies asked similar questions: Israeli Mossad, German BND, French DGSE. Every intelligence service wondered, how many of our shared sources did Ames betray? The CIA couldn't answer. They didn't know the full extent of Ames's access to Allied operations. Counterintelligence procedures changed across American intelligence. Polygraph frequencies increased. Financial disclosure requirements expanded. Lifestyle investigations became mandatory. Security clearance reviews intensified. The mindset shifted from trusting employees to verify and confirm everyone. The Ames betrayal had proved trust wasn't enough. Verification became doctrine. April 28, 1994. United States District Court, Eastern District of Virginia. Aldrich Ames stood before Judge Claude Hilton. The charges: conspiracy to commit espionage, tax fraud. Maximum penalty for espionage: death. Ames had already accepted a plea deal: life in prison without possibility of parole in exchange for full cooperation and reduced charges for his wife. The prosecutor read the charges, the evidence, the confession. Ames stood silently. His lawyer advised him not to speak beyond the plea. Judge Hilton asked if Ames understood the charges. "Yes, Your Honor." Did he wish to change his plea? "No, Your Honor, I plead guilty." Judge Hilton's sentencing statement lasted 15 minutes. He detailed the damage, the deaths, the compromised operations, the intelligence losses. He called Ames's betrayal one of the most destructive acts of espionage in American history. He noted Ames showed no remorse, no regret, no understanding of the consequences of his actions. "You have betrayed not only your country, but the men and women who trusted you with their lives," Hilton said. "Their deaths are on your conscience if you have one." Sentence: life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Fine: $250,000. Asset forfeiture, everything. The house, the car, the bank accounts, the wine collection, everything seized and liquidated. Ames was led out of the courtroom. He didn't look back. Rosario Ames was sentenced separately in October 1994. Her sentence: 63 months in federal prison, 5 years and 3 months. She claimed she'd known nothing about her husband's espionage until late in the relationship. She claimed ignorance of where the money came from. The prosecution proved otherwise. Bank records showed her name on accounts receiving KGB payments. Testimony showed she'd made chalk marks on signal mailboxes. She'd helped arrange meetings. She'd spent the money knowingly. The judge didn't believe her claims of ignorance. But the plea deal held. 63 months. She served her time at a minimum security facility. Released K-99. She reportedly returned to Colombia. Paul, her son with Ames, was 9 years old when his mother went to prison. His father was already serving life. Paul's aunt took custody. The boy grew up knowing his father was America's most notorious traitor. His life after childhood remains private, as it should be. The prison assigned to Aldrich Ames, initially ADX Florence in Sanin, Colorado, the federal Supermax prison, one of the most secure facilities in America. Ames spent years in administrative segregation. 23 hours a day in his cell. 1 hour of exercise in an individual cage. No contact with other prisoners. No phone calls except to attorneys. No visits except through glass partitions. The prison held terrorists, cartel leaders, and traitors. Ames fit right in. In later years, he was transferred to Federal Correctional Institution Cumberland in Maryland. Medium security. He'd earned the transfer through good behavior. In prison, Ames has given occasional interviews. He's expressed no remorse. He's called his betrayal a matter of conscience. He's claimed the CIA sources he betrayed were either unimportant or suspected double agents anyway. Investigators have fact-checked these claims. They're lies. The sources were crucial. They were genuine. They trusted America. And Ames sold them. As of 2024, Aldrich Ames remains in federal custody. Age 83. Serving life without parole at FCI Cumberland. The Bureau of Prisons website lists his release date as life. He'll die in prison. The families of his victims have seen some measure of justice. Small measure. No amount of prison time brings back executed fathers, husbands, sons, but at least Ames didn't escape. He didn't defect. He didn't die free. Adolf Tolkachev's family eventually learned the American CIA officer who betrayed him had been caught and sentenced. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. Dmitry Polyakov's son wrote about his father's betrayal years later. He called Ames a man without honor. The description fits. Sandra Grimes, the CIA officer who helped catch Ames, retired and wrote a book about the investigation. Circle of Treason documented the hunt from inside the CIA. Grimes died in 2025 at age 79. Her colleague, Jean Vertefeuille, had died in 2012. Both women spent their final years knowing they'd stopped America's most damaging mole. FBI agent Les Weiser retired after a distinguished career. He's given interviews about the Ames case. He's called it the most important counterintelligence case of my career. He's also called it frustrating. "We caught Ames in 1994, Weiser said in one interview, but he'd been betraying us since 1985. 9 years. 9 years of damage. If we'd caught him sooner, how many lives would we have saved?" The CIA Memorial Wall at headquarters in Langley, Virginia, honors fallen officers with stars carved into white marble. The wall has 143 stars as of 2024. Some stars represent CIA officers killed in action. Others represent assets, foreign nationals who spied for America and paid with their lives. Several stars on that wall represent Ames's victims. Dmitry Polyakov has a star. Adolf Tolkachev has a star. The CIA doesn't release the names of all the fallen, but the stars mark their sacrifice. Each one represents someone who trusted America, someone who risked everything for intelligence that saved lives and won the Cold War, and someone Aldrich Ames sold for money. Training facilities across the American intelligence community teach the Ames case. CIA officers in training study what went wrong, the security failures, the missed warning signs, the lifestyle red flags nobody reported, the polygraph results that should have failed him but didn't. Every failure is dissected, every lesson learned. The case study includes specific instructions. Report colleagues living beyond their means. Report unusual access requests. Report suspicious contacts with foreign nationals. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, report it. The Ames case proved that career-long service doesn't equal trustworthiness. Access doesn't mean loyalty, and sometimes the person investigating the mole is the mole. FBI counterintelligence training uses the Ames case for different lessons. How to run a surveillance operation, how to coordinate with allied agencies, how to build a prosecution case that eliminates all defenses. The Ames investigation became the model for future mole hunts. The methodical approach, the financial analysis, the trash pulls, the physical surveillance, the technical operations, every element is now standard procedure. Because the Ames case proved the methods work. They catch spies, they stop betrayal, they save lives. Comparative analysis places Aldrich Ames as the second most damaging spy in modern American intelligence history. First place goes to Robert Hanssen, the FBI agent who spied for the KGB from 1979 to 2001. Hanssen's betrayal lasted longer, but the damage comparison is debatable. Ames killed more people directly. Sin